Okay, good morning again. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay, and you can see the screen. All right. If you attended our last webinar, you know that Dave Vishen usually kicks these off for us. Today, Dave is out sick, so I'm going to take the opportunity to introduce myself. My name is Nick Belenke. I work on the EquipSoft team as a senior application consultant, and my job is to show people the EquipSoft family of software products and how they can put them to work for them. I do product demonstrations and webinars, just like the one you're on now. I also do web demos for companies looking for more information on specific topics. If there's something today that piques your interest, do contact me afterwards. Or if you like, you can ask right now. Your GoToWebinar window on the right side of the screen has a little chat window where you can submit questions. That's in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. If you enter the questions there, I'm going to try to answer them at the end of the presentation. And if not, I'll try to personally get back to you with an answer right away. Now, this is a good opportunity also to tell you to maximize your screen. And if you aren't asking a question, in the upper right-hand corner with your GoToWebinar interface, there's an orange arrow button. And that orange arrow will let you sort of shrink that panel screen. So this is a good time to maximize your screens and shrink your GoToWebinar interface if you haven't already done that. So let's just get right into it. Today I'll be showing you what we've been working on, what's new with Microsoft Dynamics Nav ERP, with a focus on what's new for EquipSoft specifically. And in this webinar, when you see or hear EquipSoft 2013, well, what I mean by that is the upcoming release of EquipSoft on the brand new Microsoft Dynamics 2013 platform, which is quite a mouthful, but you're going to be hearing that a lot. So let's take a look at the list of topics that we're going to be covering today. So as you can see, I'm broadly separating today's topics into interface changes and technical changes. And don't worry, I'm going to keep the technical details as light as possible, but you can always ask questions as we go along in the chat window, like I mentioned before. So our top topics today are going to be a discussion on the role-tailored client, new interface features within that client, Microsoft integrations, cloud deployment, three-tier architecture, and dimension sets. And of course, the last three are in the technical section. I think, though, it would be the right thing to do is to actually start by looking at what we are not covering today. So what we're not covering today is the classic client. And most of you are on the 2009 version of the classic interface. The screen that I have here is a combination of various forms, and forms define each of the sort of visual pages that you see underlined on the screen. So these forms are, you could say, hard-coded. Each one is relatively difficult to change because you just have to change the coding underneath, the underlying coding, in order to change the function of the form. Most of the functions of the actual software functions are hidden, so this screen is mostly data, which means that you have to drop down these menus at the top, or you have to pull up the menus that are at the bottom in order to sort of get at those functions. So it's just it's a useful exercise to understand where we're starting from in this discussion. But none of these are inherently bad features. It's obviously functional for our clients. And so, one of the questions I'm going to look for answering today is, why would Microsoft go to the energy and effort to actually change this interface? So a good place to start is to introduce a replacement. The replacement is called the role-tailored client. Sometimes you'll see role-tailored as one word, and even more commonly, you're going to see RTC, the acronym for role-tailored client. You're going to see that on the presentation. You're going to hear people talk about that. So it's the new face for Dynamics Nav, and it's also the new face for EquipSoft 2013. RTC has been around for a while, and it was released actually, at first it was released in 2009 with Dynamics Nav. The classic client was also available at the same time with 2009. So Microsoft has started to make it required, starting with Dynamics Nav 2013. So anybody implementing Dynamics Nav 2013 is going to be using the RTC. They're not going to be using the classic client. So a couple, sort of give you an idea for what are some of the user experience requirements for the role tailor client. Every user has their own role center. So a role center, and we'll see it later, a role center actually defines your daily work. What's important to you today? What's important to you right now? Role centers are easy to configure. They're easy to change. They're easy to set up for individual employees, or if you have multiple employees that are doing the same type of work, you can reuse the same role center for each of those employees. The focus on the role center is on workflow. So work in process is front and center. You'll see it's immediately and literally in the middle of the screen. What you need to work on is clearly highlighted on the screen. When the user actually interacts with the role tailor client, navigation is easier, filtering is easier, lists are easier to handle. The visual experience is generally better. The interface itself is easily searchable. There's a global search, which you used to have to go into a development environment in order to use. There is intuitive and predictive data entry. We'll get to see that as we show you a couple more screens here. So let's take a look at the interface itself. We'll discuss the parts that sort of make it up. So this slide shows you a static view of the role tailor client. It's significantly different than the classic client we just saw a moment ago. The main sections are pretty easy to tell, especially if you've ever used any kind of Microsoft product in the past. That's already one of the more modern products, like something from the Office Suite, Outlook, or Excel, or Word. This screen that you're looking for is the landing page for every employee. This is when they start up, when they fire up their PC, this is what they're going to see. So I'm logged on as a sales order processor, which you can see right here. My role center defines what's going to actually be on this screen. So it determines the layout, which parts are shown, what order they're in, etc. The role center is a model for each person's daily work, and it focuses on showing them the work in process they should be most concerned with. So let me touch on each of the areas here to sort of highlight what they're called, because I'll be using some of the names in the future and just get you sort of used to that. So on the left side, this is the navigation pane. This is where all your major functions are, and also you see right below the words navigation pane, this is also where you get to any of the functions that you don't use commonly but you have access to in the department section. And you can always jump back home and be right back to your role center page. The ribbon contains all the functions that you need in this screen. So rather than having a bunch of drop-down menus, all the functions on each tab are available for you right here. And again, this will be familiar to anyone that's used a relatively new version of an Office product. So the ribbon replaces tons of drop-down menus, and it's much faster because you can just click on the different functions that you need instead of trying to navigate pull-downs and rollover menus. Of course, you can still tab between major groups of functions because there's only so much space at the top of the screen, but all those functions stay up here. So as you're working on the document, they're available to you. This is all stuff that's available, for example, in Outlook. So, for example, like this would be like the foldering in Outlook. However, what's new in the RTC client that you probably haven't seen if you haven't seen the RTC before is this section, which is a list of queues. This, like everything else, these queues with CUES are customized for each employee's role. So if I'm a sales order processor, I may be interested in sales orders that have been delayed, or sales orders that are ready to ship but have not for some reason, or sales quotes that remain open but haven't been released. Okay, so these are sort of paper stacks visually, but what they represent is your list of work to do. So when you drill into these, and we'll do that in a little bit, when you drill into these, you'll see the actual underlying list that form these that form these queues. Quick Links gives you access to the most popular functions in the software that you would use, again, in your role center. rather than having to click through menus. Outlook integration directly here. You have your Outlook box right in your role center. You can flip back and forth to have your full Outlook box if you want, but your mail, your calendar, your tasks can all be integrated here. There is a charts area, and similarly, there's a top customer area. Both of these are configurable. You may not want these on your screen. You may want different charts. You may want, rather than customers, you may want something else like the top contracts or parts or anything else that you deem necessary to watch. But these groups are modular, and you can remove them and move them around as you see fit, like my customers and my items and these charts. So for charts, any data that you need to track on a daily basis can be right on your screen, and it acts like a dashboard for you. And so different roles have different dashboards and different metrics that they're going after. On the dashboard for like the company president, you may just have all charts and all metrics on the screen if they don't commonly access any lists or functions. So, and the last area I just want to bring notice to is notifications. This is your internal messaging system built right into the ERP system. And this replaces if you think back to all the times that you've walked around with a Post-it note and you've, how many times have you printed like a sales order just to scribble some small note on it and then hand it to somebody else in order for them to update it? This is a way for you to skip all that process, and directly from that sales order or service order document, you can send them a message asking for an update or asking for a change directly in the interface. So this saves quite a bit of Post-it notes in the future. All right, so that's a lot to take in all at once. So why don't we take the opportunity to, for the first time, to sort of jump out of presentation mode here and jump into a view of the software itself. So again, here is, hopefully everyone's looking at my actual live screen now. I've switched out from the presentation to a live screen. You can see I can actually, move around and change the view. So on the left side, you have the navigation pane. As I did just now, you can switch between the different options on the navigation pane. In the ribbon, I have various functions. You can see as I flip through the tabs on the ribbon, I can access all my functions without needing any drop-down menus. My queues, I can pick any of my queues on my Role Center page, and I can drill right into it. And you can see here's my list of delayed sales orders. So the queues drop into lists, and again, I can continue to drill down into any of the documents that are inside of these queue lists. And if I want to make a new document, like for example, a new sales order, that's easy. I just click New Sales Order. It's in the middle of my Role Center because this is something that I do very often. The Outlook area down here is integrated. Now it's integrated into a mailbox that doesn't have any emails, so we can't open any. But you access your calendar or tasks, and they could be listed here one by one if you had those. The chart area, it gives you little updates as you hover over the chart. You can get the actual data. This is about how many sales orders have been released each month. You can put in pop charts and bar graphs and everything you could expect from an Office application here. And in top customers, I can go to my top customer list, and I can actually drill directly into those top customers and see more information. We're going to look at this list in a little bit more detail later. And same with the notifications. I can drill right into notifications, and I can open them up and take a look at them if I want to, right directly to the document where that notification is listed. Okay. So you got a little bit of a preview of it, but I also want to show you more than just your front page. I want to what it looks like when you sort of drill into the actual pages of the screen of the screens. So the new interface brings a lot of changes to the layout of familiar elements in the classic interface. So brings out new areas. For example, fast tabs. Fast tabs replaces clicking through lots of tabs at the bottom of the form. So instead of data being hidden away from you when you're looking at for example, this is a client master record, a customer record. The data is visible. It's been shown in these fast tabs with all the important information promoted, and you can open or close as many of these fast tabs as you like at a time. So if invoicing tab and shipping tab are important to you, those can be open while the rest of the tabs are closed. So you can have as much data on the screen as you're interested in. An expanded fast tab like this general tab shows you all of the fields. The promoted data is coming from each of the tabs like communications. It's going to bring up your phone numbers and your email addresses. You don't have to drill in if you don't want to. You don't have to spend the time clicking. It's all about adding a little bit more efficiency to the screen. Your document fact box on the right and your financial fact box on the right. Again, these are configurable fact boxes. You can choose whether to have them or not. The document fact box records common information that you're looking for example, the number of open orders you may have with a customer, number of shipments, and you can drill into any of these as you want to. With the financial fact box, it's very similar. You can drill into any of the financial data for this customer as well. So similarly, just as we did with the main RTC page, I'd like to show you what it actually looks like when you drill into some of those records. So back to our live interface here. When we go to okay, make that go away. When we drill right into the, for example, the customer list, we can select a customer. In this case, we're going to select Sierra Minerals. And this is the same customer list that we looked at before. So in the fast tabs, we can expand them. You can see if I increase the size of the communication fast tabs, the promoted data goes away, but all the data is available here. Okay, and I can do that with as many of these fast tabs as I want to. And the section to the right here with the document history, I can drop into, for example, if I'm interested in posted invoices, I can pop into a list of all of the posted invoices, and then I can continue to drill here as well. Same with the financial information. I can drill into the balance information for Sierra Minerals. And let's take a look. Let's expand this for you. And you can see past due invoices. You can see current invoices and their amounts. And this may actually make it so that you're not necessarily printing a report every single time you need information about a customer. You may just look at the live data that's in the interface. Okay, so beyond the role tailor client and sort of integrated into the role tailor client are a number of other improvements to the interface. There's a lot, and this is just a short list of some of the top ones, some of the ones that are interesting to show or to list. So beyond those obvious layout changes, I picked a few of the highlights. So understand that this presentation could include anything that's been added to the RTC, and this is an important point. The RTC was actually released in 2009, and I'm showing you the 2013 version of the RTC, which means there's a lot of different functions that have been released since 2009 that are improvements, and they sort of fall across that 4-year span of Microsoft releases. So some of these are new to 2013, some of these are new for RTC. Copy paste is the first one on the list. Although you could copy paste before, you can copy paste entire rows here, meaning that especially when you're doing setups in the software, it's so much easier to grab a full row of data, change maybe one cell, and continue doing setups rather than having to tab through the entire setup. Or you can copy a row out of a sales order and paste it directly into Excel, rather than having to drop the entire document out if you're only looking for one row of information. This is just an efficiency, and it speeds up interface with the software. You can share links with EquipSoft pages via email and documents. Basically, you can use the copy link function in the software and then paste that same link directly into an email. Really paste it anywhere. It's copy and paste functionality. And as you see on the screen here, it's a little covered up, but this customer's link will bring you directly to the customer's page or to a document or to a specific place in the software. So you don't have to print and hand or send a document over. You can just copy a link to it in the system and email somebody if you have a question with that link. With the new 2013 interface, you have the option for connecting a phone interface. So that means integrating phone tools. So phone tools are whatever device or software is registered as the telephone service for your computer. So if you have telephony software, you have Skype, or you even have Microsoft Link listed as your telephone provider, as your default telephone provider for your computer, you can link your customer contacts directly into those software packages. Now, of course, Skype and Link are Microsoft telephony software. Could be something else. It doesn't have to be a Microsoft product. There are some additional setups related to adding Skype and Link, but they're available. Of course, they have to be running on your client as well. It's a kind of a spoiler, but some of those add-ons like Skype and Link require additional software. So if we're talking about a web client, it's not going to have those connections. So that's a little bit of a spoiler for what we're going to talk about in the future, but it's important to keep in mind. Skipping past, if you're doing a lot of data entry, especially if you're an order processor, you're going to find that there are a lot of fields that you do not typically use, even though you need to occasionally have them on the screen. Like, for example, address to is one of the most famous ones. Address to can be skipped directly over by, instead of tabbing through the fields, you can just hit enter through the fields, and that will skip predetermined fields that you can sort of script in the background as optional. And that's all controlled by hitting the enter key rather than the tab key. So that speeds up data entry. More keyboard shortcuts. Now, there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts. I will show you just a few to give you sort of a taste for it from a demonstration standpoint, but I think you'll get the idea here that there are an extreme number of keyboard shortcuts to show. So back to our role center page, the first keyboard shortcut that I would show you is to find, like let's say, for example, I'm looking for service items. One thing the sales order processor does not have is service items listed in their navigation pane, which means they could go to departments and search for it under some other headings. But new in Nav 2013, what we can do is type Control F3. That brings us up to the search menu, and in the search menu, we can type, and you can see as I type, the system is going to search for pages that match what I'm actually typing. So I can type service items, and it will bring me to the service items list. If I'm looking for a specific service item, now think of equipment when I say service items. I can hit F3, and it's going to bring me directly to the search field, and if I'm looking for, let's say, cat, I can enter that cat equipment. If that's not enough for me, by the way, if one filter, and advanced filtering is one of the major features in 2013, if that one filter is not enough, I can always add a filter. For example, if I want to add a status filter, I can select all of my customer-owned equipment and continue filtering the list from here. So if I want to open a record, I can do Control-Shift-E, and it's going to pop up the equipment record. Let me just make that a little bigger for you to be able to see it. It can actually pop up the equipment record, and inside the equipment record, I've got all of the information about the specific piece of equipment. And if that's not enough for you, then anytime you have any kind of menu up on the screen, you can push Alt, and then you can push the letter that appears with the Alt menu. So you see up here, all these little letters popped up. So I can remember my typical key combinations, like I just did Alt-N, and then if I want statistics, if I want service orders, I push E, and if I'm looking for service lines, I push S, and the system gets me there. So once you get very familiar with the software, you can go very quickly through any of the menus. So where there were no shortcuts before, there's basically an infinite number of shortcuts available here. And don't forget, a lot of your favorite classic functions are still here, like Control-E will launch your Excel. And you can see you get a nicely formatted Excel database or Excel spreadsheet with the same information that we just saw on the rest of the interface. We're not going to save that. So we can also save links, save shortcuts to our navigation pane, and I'm going to just skip over that in the interest of time here. And then one more, just get back on my presentation. One more important function is the ability to add to your ribbon. So whatever ribbon functions you saw me using, those are pretty much canned coming out of the box, but those are totally configurable by the user, meaning all I have to do is go up to this little drop-down menu here with the Dynamics logo on it and add additional ribbon items. If you've ever done that with other Office products, it's the same thing here. Same ease of use right here. Okay, so if I were you at this point, I think I'd have a lot of questions. We just spent 15 minutes looking at the starting screen, a couple master records. Why did I spend so much time discussing this interface? Why does it matter how you interact with the software? When you reorganize the way that the data is presented, how does that affect your company? And where are all the rental contracts and PM service orders that you use every day? I mean, I just showed you the front screens. So, okay, first of all that is still in the software. In fact, the main focus of EquipSoft 2013 has been, we've been working hard since the Dynamics Nav 2013 release to make sure that all the functions that you're used to using are there, and they're working well inside of the software. So that's our goal as we release the software. But the underlying question is, do these changes in the interface actually matter? And Microsoft asked the same question when it released RTC back in 2009, and here's the answer. Yes, of course it matters. So, or else this wouldn't be much of a presentation. So underlying that, of course, is there's a little bit of data. There was a white paper test, white paper released by, of course, by Microsoft when RTC was released, where they ran tests with two separate task sets, and in one task set, sales orders, basically sales order entry tasks were tested, and in another one, accounting tasks were tested. There were about 25 different tasks, and over 40 people, 40 sort of novice users were tested to see how they do in the software, how well they do at these tasks. So you can see that as far as success rate on the tasks, Classic versus RTC, there was a huge improvement. So people can jump right into RTC and do better with less training than you could with a Classic client. That means that it's easier to use and you're going to make fewer mistakes with the RTC. It's just more intuitive. And success rate's really important, but also the sort of the satisfaction level of your employees is critical as well. When they use the software, are they going to be happy about it? Are they going to like the experience? Are they going to complain all the time? And what we found was in the same study that the people who use the RTC interface were happier. They were 26% happier, meaning the way that they scored it on a point scale, and between the order processing and accounting sides of the test, the results were very similar, and when you stack them up, it was a 36-point difference. So asking all these people, did you like the RTC software? The answer was yes. When we looked at the results and actually compared to how they did, there was an improvement as well. So the software interface can make a big difference. Tweaking the way that the users see and interact with the data can make their jobs easier, faster, can make them happier. And truth is, we waited a few years to let Microsoft get the kinks out of that RTC interface. And the 2013 version is even better than the 2009 version that's referenced in this test. So that's why EquipSoft is rolling out RTC in coordination with Dynamics Nav 2013. And we think you're going to see a return on your investment moving to EquipSoft 2013 and improve workflow and efficiency. But that's really only part of the picture. So let's sort of ease into the technology side by talking about integrations. So I've already mentioned a number of integrations, and you probably expected these given that it's a Microsoft-based ERP system. But EquipSoft 2013 integrations are tighter, and we add one more sort of Office product to the family. You saw how Outlook was integrated right from the RTC page, but also you can jump into Outlook from really any page that you have data. You can share links in Outlook directly just by dropping down the nav menu. Excuse me. You can see, you saw that we could drop into Excel anytime. That's good. You can also save the links to data that's in EquipSoft in Excel, and those links stay live. So as you update EquipSoft, your Excel spreadsheets stay live. So it's very simplified. It's simplified reporting. If the data that you're looking for is pretty straightforward, you can just basically suck it out of the database with Excel and keep it up to date. Word is also well integrated, meaning that any page that you come up with, especially documents and orders, you can drop into Word and edit them and change them and then send them on to the client if you want to. If you want to make changes that are just not in your basic sales order report, you can drop into Word, make the changes, and send it away. That means adding things like configuration information, additional pricing options, anything that you don't have defaulted into the software, you can add it in Word if you want to. And all of these functions are available in the print and send menu anytime a data view is shown. So you can choose how you want to share the data: Outlook, Excel, Word, whatever makes sense for the situation. So the one new addition is called Microsoft OneNote, and it's a little less known member of the Office suite because it was added much more recently. Although I think calling it new is a little unfair since OneNote's been around for like a decade. But it's like all productivity software. It takes a while for folks to catch on to this. So if you're not using it already, I think you should seriously consider trying OneNote out, and I'll keep my pitch to a minimum here. You may actually already own it if you have it as part of your Office suite or Office 365, depending on the options that you selected. It lets you take free-form notes, scribble, draw tables, insert photos, organize your notes in one place. So it does that, and then it connects all that data to the cloud. So I know that's a hot term right now, and there I said it. I said cloud. And allows users to collaborate even across branches. Doesn't matter where you're working because it's all up on the internet. So if you've ever, like some examples, if you ever sat in a meeting and you took notes, and then you lost the notes, or you can't find which piece of paper you scribbled them on, where you forgot where you put them, OneNote is perfect for you. If you've got employees that are covering each other for lunch, or they have multiple shifts, and you want to keep customer notes in great detail, OneNote is integrated into your ERP, and it's a perfect way to store and organize all of those notes as well. So, give it a shot. I'm going to stop pitching OneNote to you there, since Microsoft, they do a great job on their own website. So if you have questions, I'd be happy to link you over there. You'll see my contact information at the end. So, all right, so now I did warn you. I said the word cloud, and that we were going to get a little bit more technical. So I'm just going to jump. I'm going to just jump right into that now. If you've been watching the techie blogs and techie news, you probably know about Windows Azure. It's a new way to deploy any kind of software, not just Dynamics Nav, but really any kind of software into the cloud. And think of it as an operating system. It's like having a Windows server running in the cloud, and you pay Microsoft or your partner to host that server, and you install software on it, just like a physical server. But Microsoft deals with the details of where the physical equipment lives, keeping it running, and keeping it up to date. So, there's a lot of discussion about the cloud, and I'm not gonna get into too much detail about it here. But the way that it relates to our discussion is in one specific way, that because Microsoft recently announced that there's going to be support for Dynamics Nav 2013 to be hosted on Azure, and that means EquipSoft can be hosted as well. And we've already done a dry run of this for internal purposes, and the performance has been great. So this is cutting edge, bleeding edge stuff, but we just want you to be aware of it. The benefit of using the cloud hosting like Azure is that you outsource that IT portion of your implementation and you focus on your business. You can save the money on the hardware and your IT costs depending on exactly how what your needs are and how you have it configured from the standpoint of performance, how many users you have, how many branches you have, et cetera. That could start really adding up in hardware costs, and that's where the savings for going into the cloud really start to add up as well. And of course, there are multiple cloud providers, but the singular support from having Microsoft as the one throat to choke, or your Microsoft partner like EquipSoft, then that's very helpful when and if you have an issue down the road. Okay, so moving on from the cloud, I'll try not to say the word cloud anymore. The next topic that I promised we'd discuss is called ThreeTier Architecture and EquipSoft 2013. We made a big leap technologically forward in support of ThreeTier Architecture. And I'd say immediately before you start snoring, I promise there's going to be a picture explaining what this means if you're not familiar with the concept. But what I'd really like to do is start the discussion kind of at the end and skip ahead to the good stuff. I keep saying the classic client versus the RTC client and sort of acting as if it's a one-on-one comparison, but the reality is that there are several client options for RTC, which means that, yeah, you can have the you can have the local client, but also web client is available. So one of the main underlying changes with RTC is it makes the forms that you're used to in the classic client, and it converts those to pages, and those are like web pages, and so you can view them directly on your PC with your local client, or on your web client. So from really anywhere that you can reach your server, you can open up a browser. From any device that has a relatively new browser, you can launch the EquipSoft client. So that's big news from the standpoint of deployment. You might not need all those Citrix or terminal services licenses that you've been paying for every time you add a user as well. So there could be a strong ROI depending on how you use this client. If you have a new branch opening or you have a new user opening, really this is a major implication to those kind of rollouts, because basically within 10 seconds of acquiring that branch, you can open up a browser, hit the right server, and you're ready to start processing orders and contracts right away. So it's big for how long it takes you to be up on the new software. You'll be up on new software immediately this way. So, and then also, I'm sure you jumped ahead and thought about this. If your team is enabled out in the field with web-enabled devices with cell phone connections or Wi-Fi, it's like they're right in the office. So you can make your mobile users experience completely seamless. They're not going to even really feel the difference between being in the office and outside of the office. So, all right, enough about that. Now, I promised to explain three-tier architecture, so let's jump into it. So here on this slide, I've actually got in orange is today's two-tier architecture. It's simple. Each client reaches back to the EquipSoft database and makes queries. Each of the clients talks to the database. Very straightforward. Each client grabs tables of data, it processes them, and it shoots back any of the results one by one to the database server. So this actually works really well, and it's been working for all of our clients to this point. But the constant march of technology is hard to stop. So two-tier architecture suffers from two major issues, let's say, in today's world. So the first one is that the clients have to be fat. And by fat, I mean that not an insult, but that the program, it means that the program you run has to have a lot of processing power behind it. It needs to be able to make all those computations on the data, generate all the requests to the database, and then render everything to the screen. So that's a lot to ask from a web browser running on a tablet. It's also a lot of data to push on a cell phone connection. All right, so that would slow you down. Number two, the database has to put up with requests from each client, and that means, if there's 10 or 15 clients, you're going to have 10 or 15 connections here. Generally, it's not a problem. But the heavier the client load becomes, we have, of course, implementations with hundreds of clients. The heavier implementations have higher hardware requirements for the server that's running the SQL Server database, and that can also translate into slower performance as well if the SQL Server is not keeping up with all the clients. So with EquipSoft 2013, we introduced three-tier architecture. We add a tier. It's called the service tier between the client and the database. It's usually a server running near the SQL Server, so they share a gigabit or better data connection. Now, it can be a virtual server, it can be It could be a real physical server. That's up to your IT department. It can be in the cloud. Doesn't matter. But the point is that there's an additional level of processing. And this service tier handles all the database communications and aggregates reading and writing data to the database. It caches the requests from all of these clients, and it delivers them efficiently. And it does a lot of the heavy lifting that the clients were doing with all the data, and then it only sends the result to the client, meaning that I don't have to push huge tables of data to the clients unless they're specifically requesting small changes. Screenfuls of data is all that I need to push. That means less data transferred, so those cell phone connections are not racking up as many gigabytes, but also helps you with speed and performance. So that's good news, and but even with the better performance of the SQL database with ThreeTier architecture, there's still enormous data sets. So Microsoft has gone to great pains to sort of shrink those data sets down as well. One of the biggest performance tweaks, one of the most commonly cited performance increases, comes from what are called dimension sets. So that's what's up on the screen now. Dimension sets replace individually listing each dimension with every journal line, document header, document line. So if you don't know what a dimension is, a refresher is on the slide. Each dimension represents a facet of your business that you would typically store this as a sub-account to your chart of accounts, or a sub-sub-account, or a sub-sub-sub-account. And that's really where dimensions are great, because it's getting rid of all those sub-accounts, and it can simplify your COA, and it can make reporting much easier as well. I have financial and operations reporting. It really doesn't matter what kind of reporting you're doing. It can make it much simpler, much more simple. So the only issue is that dimensions can become victims of their own success in a way. If you assign a lot of dimensions in your software, then that means every one of those dimensions is added to every single entry in the database, every single transactional entry in the database. And that can add to the database size, the processing time, transfer time, et cetera. So EquipSoft 2013 really handled this in an elegant way. So all those dimensions like branch and department and manufacturer and product type, they can be pushed into another table called a dimension set. So each set has a combination of those major dimensions that you have. So for example, here's set 1. Each of the dimensions is input into the table as a single entry, and then just one entry per database entry captures all of your dimension data, greatly reducing the size of that database entry. So that that's probably the biggest increase, the improvement as far as tweaking the system for better performance. There are other ones, and unfortunately, I'm out of time, so I'm going to sort of try to wrap this up. Now, we have questions, so let's discuss those quickly here if we can. Here is our contact information. Remember, you can continue to submit chat questions even after the presentation, as long as the presentation is open in the window to the right. You can also contact us. Now, remember, Dave's sick, but he's going to be responding to questions. Please, you can call him directly or email him at the email address shown here, or you can email me directly. I'll answer you as well. So we got a couple of questions coming in. So I know we're at the sort of 45-minute mark. I'm just gonna answer one or two of these, and if I don't get to your question, I apologize. So I'll get to you directly. So the first question, okay, and actually no, this wasn't the first one asked. It's just the first one I'm going to answer because I anticipated this one. When will EquipSoft 2013 be released? So the short answer to the question is 2013, which is good, and the longer answer is that we're shooting for early fall with a tentative release date of October 1st. So keep in contact with us to keep posted as to exactly when that's going to be. Second question, are there any new functions in EquipSoft 2013 for rental or service? Well, yes and no. So there's a new rental availability screen, rental service items. Those are easier to find and filter and select. That's the same with service items. Underlying functionality we've kept pretty much the same for the most part, and we're focusing on keeping the user experience, on updating the user experience as a major improvement you'll see in 2013. So that means we're bringing over, despite the huge change in the interface, we're bringing over all the functions from the previous EquipSoft versions. Okay, I got a couple. Okay, I'll answer one more question here. Is there a client option for SharePoint? Yeah. Okay. So if you're reading my slide earlier, you'll notice that there actually is a Dynamics Nav 2013 client for SharePoint. So if you're using SharePoint now, it can be embedded right in there with your other SharePoint functions. I have not used that one yet, so I can't attest to its functionality. But from what I understand, it's going to be similar to the web client. So all but the very most advanced functions are available there. The web client itself has a couple of small limitations compared to using the local client, which we could get into more details also. Okay, so we are out of time. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I'm going to leave my contact information and Dave's contact information on the screen, so you can jot it down. If you have more questions, reach out to us. And thank you so much for your time.